Thank you, everybody, for tuning into Conversations with D. I have the legendary, my special guest, the legendary Mark Money Green. He is a veteran music executive, entrepreneur, and author, and also an educator as well. He was raised in Hackensack, New Jersey, and he interned at the amazing Sugar Hill Records and for 3 years. And he has a BA in music education from Virginia State University, and he is a member of Omega Psi Phi
Roof.
Incorporated, Fraternity Incorporated. So he has held numerous music executive positions, well, roles that include A&R, tour management, agent, DJ, road manager, director of marketing, national director of retail, director of sales and marketing, and regional director. And he founded Celebrity Talent Agency, which is in the US and in the UK, and represents legendary individuals such as Lynn Whitfield, Pam Grier, Derek Luke, and other artists within the worlds of jazz, R&B, hip hop, and Latin music. He also created a distribution company for the legendary late great Prince in 1998 and became the general manager of his company, North Star Distribution. He also signed Will Smith and Jazzy Jeff, Salt and Pepper, Roxanne Shante, and others. And he gave Will Smith his first show after graduating for high school. So we wouldn't have had Parents Just Don't Understand. Or Ayana, because I know I still, yeah. So for people who don't know about Parents Just Don't Understand, because some of y'all might not know, but I know. Anyway, so um, he currently is the associate director and general manager of the Lehman Center in the Bronx and chair of the Hip Hop Museum Artist Relations Committee, which the Bronx is where hip hop originated in. So that's the origin of hip hop for y'all who don't understand, well, may not know that. That's where it started. So don't push me because I'm close to the edge. Or, yeah. Okay, so as you expanded your career, you launched Celebrity Talent Agency and served on multiple boards like the Hip Hop Museum. Hold on. Okay, so you also recently came out with a book, which is titled The Backstage Stories of a Hip Hop Agent, The Show Must Go On Autobiography, which is currently available on Amazon and Barnes and Noble. And let me show the screen for y'all so y'all can get this so that y'all can see this. So I want y'all to go grab it. We do support. Okay, so this is the information where you can get the book. It's pretty interesting. I had I had an opportunity to look at some of it. I'm not gonna tell y'all about it because I want y'all to go read it, but it was interesting. And yeah, so hold on, let me give you the big screen again. There we go. So thank you so much for like paving the way for so many individuals and being here. I appreciate it. And also just all that you've done, musical contributions. And it was interesting reading just reading information in terms of the A&R aspect. I really appreciate that aspect because I think it's very important. I think that um, now in the music industry, it's kind of stepped away from that a little bit. It's not so much of what it used to be. And I can appreciate and respect that aspect. Individuals as yourself and people like so legendary Jeff Red, legendary Albie Shore, they definitely, I feel like they cultivated some of that with the A&R through songwriting and through production. And I really would like that, like for that to go back to that in this industry. But that's just something that I came across. But anyway, so in your yearbook, you wrote, "Music is my life." What was it about music that captivated you so much?
Well, Dee, first I want to say thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you for
Really
coming.
appreciate this interview.
Thank
Uh,
you.
yeah, so to answer your question, I don't know. I guess most kids at an early age, they really enjoy music, but for me, I was just totally fascinated by it, and that's all I wanted to do. That's all I thought about was just trying to play and learn every instrument.
And you faced a life-changing challenge when you were paralyzed at 11. How did that experience shape your approach to life and your career?
Well, to be honest, I was so young, I didn't really understand what was going on. It was my mother who instilled faith in me and reminded me to continue to pray for healing. And it took a minute before that really sunk in. Eventually, it did sink in, and that's basically what I did. I just continued to pray to God for healing. I spent 3 months in the hospital, paralyzed from my waist down.
Mm.
And the doctors didn't know. I had 7 specialists, they couldn't figure it out. All I do remember is I had just gotten over the pneumonia, and I was at home laying on the couch. And when I got up to turn the TV, because we didn't have remotes back then, when I got up to turn the channel, I fell right on my face, and it was like,
Mm.
I had that numb feeling in your leg. You ever get that numb feeling when you just keep hitting it, trying to make it go away, but it never went away. So, eventually when I did get the feeling back, I guess the determination to walk again was was just embedded in me because that was all I wanted to do was learn how to walk again. I started with a crawler, taking 1 step, 2 steps, and that's all I did. I eventually kept practicing until eventually my legs, because one leg was shorter than the other due to the muscle being unused, um, actually regained me back the ability to walk again. And from that point on, I just stayed in the gym working out.
Mm. And your mother's faith played a big role in your recovery. How did her belief in you influence your own confidence and resilience?
Well, again, like my mother, we grew up in church like most kids,
Hmm. Hmm.
and but my mother was thoroughly immersed in the whole church and God, and she became the Sunday school teacher, the superintendent of the school. She did the plays, and I mean, we were always, I talk about in my book, like, I had to get up and go to church every Sunday. My mother, even when I got older, she didn't care. She said, if you can go out and hang out all night on Saturday, you can get your butt up and go to church on Sunday. And that's
Hmm.
how it was in my house. So, I mean, after that devastating, situation with me, my faith had just grown stronger because God healed me. It was
Amen.
nobody else. I remember I had 7 specialists, Germany, India. Nobody could figure out, and they kept telling me I'd never walk again. But it was through my faith and my prayers to God that it actually happened.
Amen. When your DJ equipment was stolen in college, you had to completely shift your path. How did you turn that setback into motivation?
Well, I was devastated. Of course, I had already established myself as a well known DJ throughout the New York area and Virginia. And when it was stolen, I just remember walking in my room like I was just a total shock. And of course, I did ask my parents, but they were like, no, we're not buying, more equipment. We're not buying no records. You almost dropped out of school because I had, taken early classes. And of course, I was DJing three nights a week. I mean, Thursday, well, actually 4 Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and sometimes Sunday. So I did miss a few classes. Yes.
Yeah, because HBCU is like definitely that nurturing environment, and like we definitely partied.
We did. Best times of my life.
Yes, Clark Atlanta University. I went to Clark Atlanta, so I understand. Yeah,
You do.
yeah. Um, you had a tough decision. You had to make a tough decision between athletics and music when your music teacher told you working out might interfere with playing the drums. How did you decide? Um, and was that a decision? Was that decision hard for you?
Not at all. I mean, music, like I said, was was all I wanted to do. I love sports, and I was playing football. And because I started early, like in the eighth grade, working out, by the time I got to high school, I was built like a brick. Because I was constantly working on my legs and working on my chest. So football was something I enjoyed, but music was my life. So when they told me that, it was like, no problem. I'll just quit, working out, and I'm going to practice my drums and piano.
When you first saw the gold records on Freddie Perrin's wall, did you know right away that you wanted to pursue a career in music, or was that a moment more of a seed planted for later? Because I know you have a BA in music education, so how did that come into place in terms of actually, not pursuing the music educational aspects a little bit later on, but um going into the music industry aspects?
Oh well, I was in eighth grade, and that when I saw those records, that solidified what I wanted to do. So a friend of mine named Freddie Williams, him and I,
Hmm.
he was playing guitar, and I was taking drum lessons, and we would talk about forming a band, not knowing who his uncle really was. So one day he invited me to his house. When I got to his house, I saw all these gold and platinum records. And I'm looking at the wall like, what is that? And I'm looking closer. It says ABC, Stop the Love You Save. Um, I Want You Back. And I was like, where did you get those records? He says, well, my uncle wrote those records. He's the producer for the Jackson 5. I was like, what?
Hmm.
And when I saw those records, that's all I dreamed about, is having those records on my wall. So it wasn't hard for me at that point. I just decided to focus on my dream, which was to be a star and to live like the Jacksons. So during that time around eighth grade, we started a band. I've been going back and forth to the library trying to learn about jobs in the music industry, and everything I saw, I wanted to do. It wasn't until later on in life that I actually met Freddie Perrin, because
Hmm.
he had became a huge producer at Motown. Eventually, he left to go to Capitol Records, where he then wrote and produced the song "I Will Survive" for Gloria Gaynor. It's So Hard to Say Goodbye for E.C. Cameron. He did, Heaven Must Miss an Angel, and I could just go on and on. The songs that he wrote and produced. So when I did finally meet him, because again, we were sending our tapes back and forth to Freddie, and we were like trying to make sure we was gonna be the next Jackson 5, and he would say, "Nah, you're not there yet. I'm trying." Eventually, I met him, and by that time, I was changed focus. I wanted to be a DJ,
Hmm.
because I had just DJs had just started coming about. This was 1976. So when I met him in
Hmm.
'77, I was like, Freddie, I'm going to be this DJ. And I started rhyming and rapping to him. And he says, no, Mark, no, no, no. You don't want to play the music. You want to make the music. Go to Howard University, study music, and learn how to play all the instruments. So I lived by every word he said. Although I didn't make it to Howard, I did go down there, and I looked at those streets, and I was like, I don't think I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to graduate here. This looks too inviting to me. So I went to Virginia State, which was my second choice.
That's good. And so your persistence led to a meeting with Joe Robinson and at Sugar Hill Records. What was that moment like, and how did it feel to have someone finally recognize your potential?
I don't think he really did, but let's just take it a little bit back, a little bit further. So, how did I get to Sugar Hill?
Hmm.
Well, in 1977, I was DJing in Inglewood, New Jersey, and this promoter came up to me and he asked me to be participate in the Battle of the DJs in the Bronx.
Mm.
So I was in 11th grade, and I said, sure. I drove over to the Bronx that night, and there were three crews, myself and two other guys. So after my set, um, everybody started leaving my set because the other guys started playing. But I was like, what is going on over there? Because I heard two guys on the mic, and I ran over there, and that was the first time I ever heard anybody rapping. And then the next crew went on. They had like four people, and they were doing the same thing. So I ran back home that night and I just wrote my first rhyme. And that weekend, I just became ghetto famous in the neighborhood. Everybody started running up to me. What is that you're doing? Sing that song. Let me hear that poem. They didn't know what to call it. And one of my high school friends, he was a freshman, I was a junior. His name was Guy O'Brien.
Mhm.
He came to me. He said, "Hey, Mark, man, what is that you're doing?" I said, "Yo, bro," I said, "Guy, they calling it rapping." He says, "Really?" And he followed me around a couple more times. By the time I got to college, he called me up. He said, "Listen, man, we're making a record." I said, "What are you talking about, we?" He said, "Yeah, I got a DJ crew now." By then, by 1977, everybody was rapping and DJing, especially after in New York when they had the blackout. All the equipment got stolen, records, so everybody
Mhm.
could be whatever they wanted to be. Once Guy told me they were making a record, the next thing I know, he came out and he was now called Master G, and the record was Rapper's Delight, and that was on Sugar Hill Records. So from that point on, I kept saying, "Man, I got to get to Sugar Hill. I got to get." I was ready to drop out of school. I was jealous, but yet excited about what was going on. Rapping at that time was still a New York thing, but a tri-state thing, I should say, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut. And it really started to take over. But by the time I got to college, a lot of people that were out of state didn't know what was going on. They just knew these guys from New York was doing all this stuff. So eventually, I started, you know, knocking on the doors of Sugar Hill. I went there and said, "I want to see Mr. Robinson." They, "Yeah, right. Okay, have a seat over there." I sat there probably the whole day. The
Mhm.
next day I came back. I did the same thing.
Mhm.
And he would come out every now and then to see who was in the lobby, to see who was there to see him. And
Mhm.
they would say, "This guy's here," but he would never give me any attention. So what I did was that next week I just packed my whole lunch and I went there every day for 1 week. Finally,
Mm.
he got tired of me sitting there and he wanted to know what I wanted. So he told me to come to his office. I came up to his office. He says, "Okay, what are you here for? What do you want to do?" I told him I want to be an engineer. He says, "Okay, you have a car?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Do you know the Bronx and Harlem?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Can you work daytimes and night times?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Okay, you can start tomorrow." I didn't know what I was going to be doing, but I started that day. Was to be a runner. What I did was run records up and down Harlem and the Bronx to the one stops and pick up checks. So what they would do is you would take the records, deliver them to the one stops, and you would get checked. The one stops were basically a warehouse where all the independent record stores would come to purchase records. They just didn't have Sugar Hill Records; they had every record label.
Mm.
That's how that came about.
That's interesting. And so I'm gonna take it back, well, turn it around a little bit. So you have over 25 years in the entertainment industry, and in your book, you have chapter. How did it come? How did you go into 61 chapters? That was interesting. Like looking at that, I was like, wow, this is very interesting. Like, how did you know to do 61 chapters? Like, what came into place with that?
Well, it wasn't even about the chapters. I was just telling the story. Some chapters are shorter than the others, but my story was in chronological order
Hmm.
based on how I got into business
Hmm.
and the things that happened during that time. Now, of course, you got the G version, because I didn't want to put the R version or the X version out there. I might not be sitting here right now. But
Okay.
I gave you the G version because,
Okay.
I didn't make this book as a tell all, but I wanted my story to be told. So
Hmm.
those that were involved with me, I gave you the lighter side of the story.
Hmm.
And during that time, like I said, some chapters may be 3 pages long, some may be five, some may be two. And that's how the chapters came about. Now, each chapter is named after a song, and the song
Hmm.
has something to do with what happened during that time frame.
I noticed that. I picked up on that because the number one, the one that popped out was "How Deep Is Your Love,"
Uh-huh.
and I believe that's from Keith. Hold on, How deep is your love?
Bee
Keith
Gees
Sweat.
and Drew Hill.
Okay, Drew Hill.
Yeah,
Okay,
they
it's
song
sure it's
called
not Keith Sweat.
Nope.
Okay, yeah, I remember Drew Hills too. How
Mhm.
deep is your love for me from the movie, the soundtrack.
Right.
Uh yeah, that movie.
Hmm.
And then
because the Bee Gees
Hollywood
did it first.
swinging. That's Cool
Yeah,
in the Gang. I know that.
the Bee Gees did it first with the
Yeah.
Saturday Night Live.
How deep
So
is your love?
there you go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
Mhm.
was gonna say them, but I didn't want to. I was
Right.
like, no, I think maybe it's Key Sweat. But then I was like, okay, I know it's song titles, and then Hip Hop Hooray,
Yeah.
ho,
Yeah.
hey,
Naughty
ho,
by
yeah,
Nature.
like my nature, yeah, and the Last Dance
Right.
is that Donna
Donna
Summer?
Summer. Donna Summer.
Yep, yay, and then
Yeah.
Born Again. Would
Yes.
that be Billy Preston?
There was Born Again came on a whole bunch of different titles, but it all stood for what was happening in my life.
Okay, okay. Okay. And then ladies' night, Cool in the Gang. I know
Yeah.
that. Yay.
hmm
And Do the Hustle.
That was
Van,
really, yeah,
yeah,
Van McCoy.
Van McCoy.
Yes.
Yep. And then Gangsta Love.
Yeah.
Um, I think that's, hold on. Which one is that one? Yeah, okay. I was just looking, I'm like, these are song titles. I know these are all song titles.
Right. Right.
And then Respect, RESP, the legendary late Aretha.
Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, a lot I was just like, this is dope. Like the message, don't push me
Yes.
because I'm close
Yes.
to the edge.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Sometimes it's like a jungle sometimes. Yeah. Okay. So I'm not a rapper, but yeah. I remember it being played when I was little growing up. So okay. And then yeah, Friends. Would that be Houdini?
Beanie.
Houdini?
Yes.
How many of us have them? Yep.
Yeah,
Okay.
because I tell a story about friends, like, in the industry, everybody's your friend until you really need something, or until you go through a situation and everybody
Hmm.
turns their back on you. They always say the music industry is cutthroat. It is.
Hmm.
A lot of people say, how did you last in it? You seem so mild mannered. But I just understood the game, and I just followed and learned everything I need to know about the game. You know, as the old players say, the game stays the same. It's just the players, or they say the players change, but the game is still the same. Either or, however you want to look at it, the game is the same. It evolves every now and then, but it's still the same.
Yeah. So when I seen that, I was like, oh my God, like Square Biz, the legendary late Tina Marie, my
hmm
fave. This is my confession. I know that's Usher.
hmm
And You Got It Bad, Usher. Make
Yeah,
them say, Master P.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah,
Jailhouse Rock.
yeah, and they all, and the whole idea is I want people to read the book. I want people to understand the story because the story itself, it's my story. It's the history, but it's based on my thoughts in order to inspire others by sharing the lessons I learned and incredible stories from working with the hip hop legends who have defined hip hop. Um, and I want people to understand that this is the early days of hip hop. I go into the story when I talk about because people don't understand. Back in the day, you got paid after the show. You didn't get paid before the show like you do now.
Mm,
And you have to understand that also back in the day, there were no cell phones, no beepers. You only had a phone and you had to have a dime to put it in there. So what happens with the promoter, most of those were gangsters, thugs, con artists, drug dealers, and hustlers. They would come in and they would pay two people, the opening act and the headliner. And after
mm,
that, they were out the building. So anybody in between got caught holding an empty bag. So when I kind of saw that going on, I made sure I was the opening act because I want to make sure I got my money. And I was determined to get my money because there's been many times as you read the book, you're going to read the stories. I had guns put to my head, not once,
mm,
but more than a few times. And these guys were straight up gangsters. And again, we talking
mm,
the era of the 80s where there's a
mhm,
lot of
mhm,
drugs
mhm.
going on and a lot of people just not even in their conscious mind.
And so you have worked with, I mean, everybody. Miss Melba Moore, Freddie Jackson, Drew Hill, Albie Shore, Grandmaster Flash, the legendary late Prince. What was the most, I guess, like throughout your career, um, can you share a memorable moment working with them, like in terms of what it was like to work with individuals like that? Because everybody is so different, the different personalities, and how did you get through it?
Well, it took me a while to understand how the business works because I'm a person that like a person that is if you tell me something, I'm expecting you to say or do what you say. I'm expecting you to be a man of your word. What I've learned in this business is that's not how it works. It's like I'll tell you this, but I'm going to do it when I want to do it, or I'll tell you I'm going to do this, but I didn't say I was going to do it during the time that you needed it. You know what I mean? It's just
Mhm,
like
mhm,
so you had to really stop, looking or expect or dealing with false expectations, so I should say.
mhm, mhm.
I was able to humble myself to really not take everything uh, at face value and pretty much not really put myself in a place where that I'm just totally getting upset all the time. And I think that kind of helped me pave through dealing with a lot of celebrities,
Mhm, mhm,
'Cause sometimes you have to hold back what you really want to say. I always, for me, it was the thing that I learned later on in the game was like, before you say that, Mark, what are you expecting to get out of it? What do you want to get out of it? Because words have power. So sometimes you have to think about, if I say this, is this going to affect me getting that check? Well, I ain't going to say it. I can't stand working with this person, but I got this money coming in and I need to get that check. He's the best friend I got, you know. So you kind of learn in the game how to deal with all these type of situations.
How did you transition making that shift from managing artists to representing them as an agent? Did you find that challenging at times? Did you find it, um, I guess not challenging? Well, you get what I'm saying, challenging.
You know what it is? It's basically the same
Okay.
because as an agent, you're still advising them. As a manager, you're still advising them. As a manager, you might have a little bit more leeway because you are the manager. But
Hmm.
as an agent, I'm giving you directions on your career because I'm the guy that's out here finding work. I'm the guy that's listening to the issues that people have had with you, or understanding that your show may not be what you think it is, or that your sound may not be what you think it is.
Hmm.
So I have to be candid when I'm talking to you and let you realize that listen, this is what we need to fix. Um, and it is those are the things you have. I think about I started working a lot with Angie Stone, although we've been knowing each other for years, but recently I booked like 5 or 6 dates on her, and then there was some pushback on some of the promoters. And before I could say something to her about it, I talked with one of the managers and didn't realize that she had been sick. And I
Mm,
guess during those times that she was actually performing, she was very sick, so
mm,
she couldn't perform like she normally did. So that kind of made me realize, okay, well, you know what, Mark, you don't have to bring that up because you just found out what the situation was. But again, when artists are out there, how come you can't give me this show? Why you can't do this? I need that. And you got to be real with them.
mm. And you've worked with a wide range of artists from hip hop pioneers to R&B legends. What are some of the key qualities you look for when deciding to work with an artist? That's kind of segueing into what you said, like you have to be real with them.
Oh
So,
yeah, well, the key thing for me is, are you willing to take direction? Are you willing to accept criticism? And are you a pain in the ass? Because if you are, I don't want to work with you. Because at the end of the day, the people who are easy to work with are going to be the people I'm going to sell all the time. If the manager's not an asshole and we can talk and work things out, then you're going to be the first person out of my mouth. I don't want to deal with headaches, and neither do you as the promoter. You don't want to get. I don't want to get a phone call 3 in the morning. Hey, the artist is too drunk. He can't go on stage, or the artist didn't show up, or the artist had this. Because when you start getting those phone calls, it just becomes a problem. And there's been a few people that I will not work with anymore because of those same situations. I don't care. I can make $100,000. It's not worth it for me because the repercussions of what's going to happen or what happened to me in the past may come back again.
What was one of the most memorable artists you helped sign and develop in your A&R journey in your career?
One of the people I'd like to take some credit for was Cisco and Drew Hill, because they were new to the game, and I came in with my marketing ideas and my ideas. Of course, there's the Boogie Boys, who kind of fresh to the game. I like to say Freddie Jackson as well, um, because what people don't realize, and a lot of artists don't even realize, like when they come into the game, and you telling them this is how it is, this is what you need to do, this is what we're going to do. You're
Mhm.
giving them directions. You're building and you're creating that person who they end up becoming, but you never get the credit for it. All the artists I can name, I bet you none of them would give me the credit for it. But I put some of those shows together. I
Mhm.
remember when I was with Drew Hill and we were doing they had the song "In My Bed," and
Yes.
I said, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna get a bed. We're gonna put it on stage. We're gonna react this whole song. We're gonna have a guy in the bedroom. Cisco's gonna come. He's gonna turn around. He's gonna look when he's saying somebody in my bed. And at one moment, he's not gonna be there. When he turns back, when he turns around, the guy's gonna be there. I built this whole thing up, and then at the end, I was like, the lights are gonna go out black, and you're gonna hear a gunshot. And
Mm.
then you're not gonna even know who shot who. It's just black. But that part got cut out after the women's rights came around and said, "Listen, you can't do that with the gun and all that." So, I mean, but there were other things that I helped create, with
Mhm.
other artists. But just
Mhm.
giving you that as an example,
Mhm.
we put the shows together. We come up with the ideas. We create this show for this person. Same thing I did with Grandmaster Flash. He had a vision, and I just brought the vision to life, and that's what we do.
And you've seen A&R evolve from a talent-driven industry to a more data-driven business. What were the biggest shifts that you've witnessed?
Oh my goodness. Well, the biggest shift was one day, I guess this is early on during that streaming and everything. I went to a record
Mhm.
label, had an artist
Mhm.
I thought was amazing,
Mhm.
and I was presenting the artist, and they weren't paying attention to anything I had to say about the artist. The first thing they said to me was, "How many followers do they have?" I'm like, "What are you
Mm.
talking about?" Yeah, how many Instagram followers do they have? I said, "Instagram
Mhm.
followers? This person's a star. What are you talking about?" And that was my introduction to, like, it doesn't matter anymore. Like, this whole game has changed. It's about who your followers are, how many streamings you can get on. It has nothing to do with creativity. It has nothing to do with artist development. It has nothing to do with you being an artist.
And so, in your role as a director of marketing at EMI and Capital, you worked across numerous genres, from jazz to rap. How did your understanding of different musical styles help you shape successful marketing strategies? And I guess, like, pave the way for your agency because you now represent all of those genres. So how did that help you?
Well, see, back in the day, and most of the people that came up my age, when we came up, we wanted to know everything it was about the artists, the history, the people before you. I mean, I went back to the 50s. I was listening to 50s, 60s, 70s music. I listened to jazz. I listened to pop.
Mhm.
So I had a great knowledge. I had great knowledge of music. We wanted to know every musician. So I knew what musicians played on what album. You know, so by the time that all that came together, I had the knowledge of jazz. I had that knowledge of pop. I had the knowledge of R&B. Hip hop was new, but I was in the beginning stages, so I knew all the hip hop
Mhm.
artists.
Mhm.
Back then you could count the hip hop artists on two hands, but now it's like Microsoft music right now because everybody's just coming out of nowhere. I can't even count the number of people who's out. Before I learn one person, there's 10 others that people say, "Do you know so and so?" I'm like, "Who?" You know. So it's a big difference.
What do artists need to understand about the business side of touring and performing?
The business, the business, because they don't understand the business. And I talk about it in the book where Tina Marie came to me one time and she told me we were talking about a show
Mhm.
and I was explaining to her I couldn't pay her cash. She says, "What are you talking about? I never get cash." I said, "But your manager asked for cash." She said, "Well, you know, Mark, I really don't even know how much this show is paying." And I looked at her like, "Are you serious? Like, how do you not know?" And then she talked about, well, I trust her. And if you read my book, in the book it says rule number one, trust nobody. I got my 10 commandments of my book of I call them my street knowledge or street rules to the game. And my number one is trust nobody because everybody's got a motive and nobody's on there for you. They
Mm,
all want something from you. And you have to figure out what it is they want before you just decide you want to give in to them or give trust to them. So, um, yeah, that's it.
mm. What's one of the most successful A&R decisions you made, and what made you take that risk?
Well, there was a song I had. I met this guy in Virginia, and he had this music, and he had some really great music. But this one particular song I thought was a hit,
Mhm.
and I took it around. I shopped it around to everybody. Everybody turned me down, and I went back to my old company, Hush. They had a record deal called Orpheus Records under EMI, and
Mhm.
I presented the record to them, and they liked the record. And that record ended up becoming the number one record for an artist named Eric Gable. The song was "Remember the First Time." It was the number one R&B song in 1990.
Mhm. Managing artists on the road is no easy task, especially in a high pressure environment. Can you share a story of a particularly a difficult situation you had to manage and how you kept the show going?
Absolutely. So, as you know, when you're on the road, there's always groupies. One particular show,
No, I'm laughing because it's true. I've heard stories.
yeah, it's groupies. So, one particular show, somebody brought this girl on the bus, and back there everybody was cordial. Nobody like stuck their nose up or whatever. Nobody knew who girl it was. So after 2 days, this girl had on the same clothes every day, and I was like, "What's going on?" And I said, "So let me ask you, who's your guest? Who brought you here?" She wouldn't tell me. So by the third day, I said, "You know what?" I went to the girls in the band. I said, "Hey, listen, take this money, go get her a toothbrush, some underwear, buy her the essentials. 'Cause I can't stand her sitting here 3 days in a row with the same stuff on."
Mhm.
So by the fifth day, it was a wrap for me. I said nobody wanted to claim her. She wouldn't tell me who brought her on, and she just ride on the bus happily ever after. So that particular time, I went to the bus driver, and I said, "Listen, I need you to do me a favor. Find me the nearest bus stop." I went to the band. I collected money from everybody in the band, and lo and behold, to her, I went to the bus stop. I got a one-way ticket back to Cleveland, Ohio, where she was from. I gave her that ticket, kicked her off the bus, and gave her a pocket full of money and said, "See you later." That's a wrap.
Wow. That's it there. I mean, that was nice. That was a nice ending. That wasn't that was cool. Wow.
Yeah,
So
I'll give you one other quick story. And it's all in the book, ladies and gentlemen. But in the book, I talk about this was in 1989. Was it 1986?
mhm,
We're
mhm,
riding on a tour bus. I was with Freddie Jackson, and
mhm,
at this point, everybody was asleep, and the bus was swerving back and forth. And
mhm,
normally, there's always somebody would sit up with the bus driver, just talk to just make sure he's
mhm,
okay. But this particular time, everybody was sleeping. I was like, "Man, what is going on?" So I got out the bus. I'm walking to the front. I go to pull back the curtains. I pull the curtains back, and this guy got a crack pipe in his mouth, trying to light the crack pipe while he's driving us through the Blue Ridge Mountains. And that's why the bus was swerving. Well, I ain't got to tell you what happened
wow.
after that. I'll just
Oh
let you
Lord.
read the book.
Oh yeah, yeah, I definitely want to read the book. Oh my God. When I seen the song titles, I was like, yeah, yeah, yeah.
There's so many crazy stories in that book.
Oh,
There was a story where
wow.
This was not, and this is early, the mid '80s. We're riding in Charlotte, North Carolina, on
Mm.
our way to the next gig, and we're stopped in the middle of Main Street because there's a Ku Klux Klan march going on down the middle of the Main Street. I had never seen them in person, and to see this was
Wow.
like the scariest moment of my life. I didn't know what to do. I just let me go grab my gun. I didn't know what the heck
Mm.
was going to happen. I just told the bus driver, drive slow, get us the hell out of here as soon as possible. But it's all in the book. It's tons of stories in the book.
Wow, that's cool. Was there ever an artist that you passed on that went on to become a major success? If so, what
Oh
did you
my
miss at
goodness.
that time?
I talk about seven, maybe six artists that happened. So let me tell you this one quick
Is
story.
it in a book?
It's in the book.
Okay, don't tell me. Don't tell me.
Okay.
Okay. Because these questions, I just came out of my head with these questions and I was just like, because
But they made
yeah.
stars now.
Huh?
They made the stars.
But I don't want to ruin the book for nobody. Though. You
Okay.
could tell me. You could tell. Yeah.
That's okay. No, we'll let them read it in the book.
Yeah. I don't want to ruin the book for nobody. I don't want to be no hater.
Okay.
So, not to cut you. I mean, if you want to tell me, you
I
can.
won't
But
tell you, but I do will tell you this. One of them
uh,
happened to be Beyonce. So I'll leave it right there.
wow. So yeah, y'all got to get this book because, like, you see the questions I came out with, y'all. Like, I just put these questions together to make y'all want to get the book. So, and hopefully, I did a good job of that. So yeah. So the 2000s saw a digital revolution disrupt in terms of the industry. How did that impact A&R's role in discovering and signing the artists?
I really can't talk about that too much because by then I was out the record business.
Mm,
I really don't know what happened around 2000, but what I can tell you though, is
mhm.
stories in this book is amazing. People have told me once they get started, can't put it down. I've heard that, I started reading it and I read it in 3 days, and I heard that, man, these stories are just, I mean, I've been getting a lot of great feedback, and really,
That's
it's just
good.
my life story.
I'm excited to read the rest of it because,
Yeah.
like, literally, I was like
Listen,
coming
I
out of the
talk about
woodwork.
DMX, Timberland, Missy Elliott, Aaliyah, Usher,
Mm.
Drew Hill, Grandmaster Flash, the Sugar Hill Gang, Montel Jordan, Aretha Franklin. I can just go on and on. There's so many artists in that book that you're going to hear the stories, and you're going to be surprised when you hear these stories.
And again, this book is available on Amazon and Barnes and Noble, and
And
you
my
can get it on
website,
Kindle and your website,
markmoneygreen.com.
markmoneygram.com,
There you go.
and you can get it as an ebook or on Kindle on Amazon, which is an ebook, or
Yes.
you can get the hardcover or the paperback.
And this color or black and white.
Yes. And it's affordable, y'all. So, yeah. I know inflation is real, but
Yes.
honestly, like, so can you share a time when you successfully turned around an underperforming album or artist through the sales strategies?
Man. Yeah,
That's not in the book, is it? Is that in the book? That question's not in the book, is it?
say that one more time again.
The answer to that is not in the book. I don't want to tell because I don't want to give. I feel like I gave a lot of the book away.
Yeah, I don't want to give too much. I want people to read it. I want people to go
Yeah.
out and buy it. I know where our time is coming closer to the end, but at the end of the
Yes.
day, again, this book is not just my story. It's to inspire others that want to get in this business, people who really want to know the backstory of what it was like in the music business. For me, I'm still fascinated every time I read about the 70s, when I read about the Motown era, when I read about the Philadelphia era. That still fascinates me how everything came about. When you read this book, you're going to read about how hip hop got started, all the things we went through in hip hop. Not only that, you're going to learn about some of your other favorite artists, Aaliyah, Timberland, Missy Elliott, and on and on and on. So this book right now is to not only enlighten you about the stories, but it's also to inspire
Well, I thank you because I don't want to ruin any more. Because I feel like my questions, I got tons of questions, and that well, I don't want to take away from the book, but hopefully, like, yeah. So make sure if you want to follow him, make sure you go to
Celebrity Talent Agency on Facebook or
yes.
Celebrity Talent Inc. on Instagram.
Hmm. And so, what would I mean? What's my last question? That's outside of the book. Um, Education.
Yes.
So that that's not in the book, is it? That you're educating people. Is that in the book?
Yep. I tell that whole
Okay,
story.
never mind. Never
But
mind.
what I would like to say that in this in this story is that
Mhm.
my book started with God and it ends with God. You will see how my life goes through the ups and downs. It's like a roller coaster, the trials and tribulations. You'll see everything that happened from the 80s to the 90s. And after a while, I just got tired of being in places where I just kept trying to figure it out or putting myself in situations that might have caused me death or harm. And eventually, I gave my life, returned my life back over to God. And from that point on, everything has been spectacular. And that's how I want to end it.
Amen.
Yes.
And I like the fact that all the individuals, when y'all get the book, y'all see like people like the legendary Curtis Blow.
Yes.
These are the breaks.
Yeah.
And Chub Rock. Yay.
And Master G did the Ford, so he tells his
Yes.
story how I introduced him to hip hop.
And Yo Yo. Don't play with my yo yo.
Yes, you got it. So I want to thank you again, Dee.
You
Thank
are
you for having
welcome.
me, and
And
I
thank
hope
you
you
to
enjoyed
Double Exposure
it. Yes,
as well, Angelo, Mr. Angelo Ellerby, and Mr.
Kevin
Kevin
Goins.
Goins.
Yes,
Goins. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. And please make sure you check out Mr. Mark Money Green's book.
yes,
And definitely, like I'm ordering, even though I gotta, I'm ordering it because I believe in paying and supporting people.
yes,
So I want the paperback. I want it signed. So
yes.
I want my version signed.
I got you.
And yeah. So thank you everybody for tuning in and check out my next episode because I'm not gonna announce it. I want y'all to be surprised. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a good night,
Thank
everybody.
you.